Well, one of the biggest frustrations related to fraud is the inability to claw that money back from fraudsters. The legislature passed a bill this session that will implement a new fraud tax that they say will get back the money that's been stolen. Danny Spiewak's live at the Capitol with more on the Take It Back Act and exactly how it works. Danny?
Julie, this is an idea that came into the session pretty late in the final weeks and was part of a taxes bill on the last night of session. But it was a bipartisan effort that got it across the finish line, and it is believed to be the first fraud tax of its kind in the United States. In the final hours of session this weekend, the legislature approved a 120-page taxes bill that included one very notable provision around fraud.
It came in late, but it was bipartisan.
GOP Representative and former state auditor Patty Anderson led the charge on the new 100% tax on fraud, which will require anyone convicted in 2026 or beyond to pay all the stolen money back to the state.
If you steal from the citizens of Minnesota and you're convicted of that, we're going to go after you for that exact amount.
The money will then be deposited into a state tax relief account, which the Department of Revenue will use to lower income taxes on Minnesotans. The fraud tax will be on top of any restitution that a defendant owes to the court, which Representative Anderson says is typically lower than what they actually stole.
This allows the Department of Revenue to go right in, right away, and say, we're taking your assets.
The bill in the House ended up with 70 co-sponsors from both parties, ultimately receiving the support of DFL House Leader Zach Stevenson, who called the fraud tax one piece of the puzzle.
People need to go to jail. We're seeing that today, and that is good. But also, we need to ensure that the dollars are recovered, and that bill, I think, is one way we can do that.
The fraud tax is one of several anti-fraud measures passed by the legislature this year, along with the statewide Office of Inspector General and bolstered staffing for the Medicaid Fraud Control Unit.
We have to keep pushing, though. We are not done until there is no fraud in state government.
Now, the larger taxes package with the fraud tax included, that provision is expected to be signed by the governor very soon. That bill has been presented to him for his signature. Now, again, I mentioned that the Department of Revenue is the one that would administer this. They were involved in the talks with lawmakers and are reviewing how they're going to move forward once this bill is signed into law. Back to you.
Danny, do you know if they got any additional funding in order to oversee this? It seems like it might be a little complicated.
That's a very good question. I don't know or don't believe that there was any additional state funding for the Department of Revenue, but that's a really good question. I actually have to reach out to see if they did have to implement any more staffing in that agency or anything like that.
All right. Great reporting. Thank you, Danny.